A thread from Carlos Osuita. For Tim Pool. It's good that you add the qualifier, the worst you've ever seen, because we've had far worse. This thread is a response to Tim Pool's video in which he says these are the worst riots in Minneapolis that he's ever seen. Carlos continues. In the Watts riots of August 11th to 16th, 1965, snipers shot at firefighters. The goal was to start a race war. Domestic terrorists always try to make the government overreact. They think this will cause an armed uprising. Watts, Ferguson, Baltimore, they all start with professional terrorists burning down neighborhoods and black-owned businesses. The locals do the looting. There's no more a black community than there is a white community. A super wealthy athlete says that destroying black-owned businesses is fighting back. Colin Kaepernick on the Minneapolis riots. It's the only logical reaction. A super wealthy filmmaker says that domestic terrorism is good citizenship. From Breitbart, Michael Moore. Minneapolis Police Headquarters must be demolished as contrition. Some black pundits are saying that the story of George Floyd's killing is being overshadowed by the burning and looting. You bet it is. Blame that on the arsonists and looters. Once again, the pooch is screwed. Nobody who lost their businesses will rebuild. But you need to understand that this is a concerted effort to make black people live in squalor. Leftism needs a permanent underclass, and the people chosen for this role are black Americans. The domestic terrorism we're seeing is identical to the motivation behind the Manson family murders. Charles Manson was trying to stoke a race war between blacks and whites. Since he had no factual knowledge on any subject, his plan was ridiculous. By committing the murders, whites would blame blacks and carry out reprisal attacks. Blacks would arm themselves and overthrow the government. But since Manson was a committed racist, he believed that black people can't do anything, so the victorious black people would turn to Manson to run the country. He would emerge from his cave, which he never actually had, and take over. Manson called his plan Helter Skelter, after a Beatles song. The LA riots were an order of magnitude worse than what's happening in Minnesota. On the third day, I saw a Sikorsky MH-13 Pave Low fly over. It's used to insert special operations units. This is in LA. As I said before, Time magazine wrote that the shadowy Borders, Prisons, and Insurrections Task Force had been activated for the first time since it was created. It was described as a 1,500-man paramilitary unit used for urban combat. In LA, we had the Bloods and Crips gearing up for war with the federal government. These guys were armed with military-grade heavy weapons. Minneapolis is nothing compared to LA. So when the dust settles in Minneapolis, black people will discover once again that they were mercilessly used as political pawns. They'll have no stores to frequent, and the cops who killed George Floyd will have been charged, as they were going to be anyway. The only difference now is Donald Trump. He'll break the cycle of domestic terrorists implementing micro-versions of Helter Skelter. I'm not actually following any of this moment by moment. Too many people are acting in bad faith. I'm 23 years older than Tim Pool, so I've seen this happen many more times. Each time, we're told that it's the apocalypse. It's not. Except for the people looting their own neighborhoods. Almost nobody in these situations is actually thinking. They're simply acting. The madness of crowds. The Abilene paradox, in which groups do things that the individual members oppose. And that's why I'm not following this. It's a rerun. After a while, you lose all interest in something you've seen over and over and over. But as I said, Trump will stop the mindless, suicidal, oppressive cycle. Watch it happen.